Yeah, hi people, Moino from the Kyrgyz as always, and as usual. Yeah, I'm going to cover Bulgaria. This is a geolocation chart on the nation of Bulgaria. Um, Someone by the name of Goldbeard, username Goldbeard in the comment section, recommended this because it's his home country, I think. Um, but of course, that's a coincidence. I was also personally interested in this, so let's go. For starters, the first house is ruled by Taurus, and Uranus is conjunct Taurus, which stands for the fact that Bulgaria is either even or uneven, most likely the latter, or even, and you have sections of unevenness at a geographical level. And Bulgaria might also have a good deal in the way of precious minerals. Think of things like, I don't know, uranium, etc. In any case, things that can be used for either commercial or industrial purposes. That's why Uranus is conjunct the ascendant, and the ascendant, so the ruler of the first house, which represents Bulgaria as a geographical location, is ruled by Taurus. Now we're gonna skip over the empty houses. Not a lot to say there. We've got Juno, Lilith, and Venus. Juno respectively in Leo, and then Lilith and Venus in Virgo, all opposed Saturn. Now, this in general stands for since it's in the fourth house, it says a lot about Bulgarian households as a whole. The fact that Juno is in Leo stands for the fact that it stands for. No, I just noticed something. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, no, it stands for the fact that there is a minor level of romance that takes place in the household overall. But there are substantial difficulties, honestly. That's why all of them are, Saturn is opposed all of them and vice versa. Notably, the moon and the black moon, so Lilith and Venus, they're weak in Virgo, or they function with difficulty in Virgo. Generally speaking, it stands for the fact that, especially women within the household, they have a tendency to be picky, finicky, selective. Let's just be blunt, bitchy. They have a tendency to be bitchy in nature, either due to overwork or a lack of work, or just generally speaking, undesirable life circumstances. And generally speaking, the men and the women don't see eye to eye when it comes to the household. The men are represented by Saturn, which is 0 degrees in Pisces, going retrograde in the 10th house. More on that later. But that's generally speaking what it means. The reason I said earlier is because Juno in Leo, I was going to say there might be a slight hint of, I don't know, homosexuality there or something, or homosexual tendencies. But again, that doesn't have to be the case. It's just a possibility, and a minor one at best. So I'm not going to make any statements regarding that because there's nothing to say really. It's just something I noticed at a very minor level. Now, the fifth house, which stands for the entertainment sector, such as anything involving gambling, sports, entertainment, blah, 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 blah. It has Pallas, Mercury, and the Sun all in Libra. The Sun is weak in Libra, not literally Libra specifically, but all air signs. It stands for the fact that there is a substantial interest in these sectors by both men and women, but particularly women, generally speaking. The women have a tendency to essentially seek out a romantic union or romantic unions with men that are in positions of power as a means of securing their own position within life, especially when it comes to finances. You've got the South Node and the North Node there. South Node is in Libra, and the North Node obviously is in Aries. Both are going stationary. Those two both say that conditions and circumstances as they are, specifically at a base level, which is the case by default, it stands for the fact that things will pretty much never change, honestly. These elements will always be present in Bulgarian society and in Bulgaria as a nation as a whole, as character-defining traits. Now, we've got Mars and the Moon. Moon represents women specifically. Both quite strong. Mars at its absolute strongest, and the Moon is also quite strong in all water signs, obviously, at its strongest in Cancer, but it's also ridiculously strong in Scorpio, like an 8 out of 10 on a scale of 0 to 10, roughly estimated, at the very least a 7. And we've got Ceres as well in Scorpio. Now, What all of this says is it stands for the fact that especially the women, men as well, but especially the women are driven tremendously by finances, so money. That's why all of them are in the sixth house, specifically working for money. But there are a lot of issues, honestly, because as you can tell, the moon is opposed Jupiter, which is in Taurus in the 12th house, going retrograde, and the pot of fortune, which is 13 degrees in Taurus. More on that later. I'm not going to make any statements about that right now. But again, money, 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 money. It's all about money. Okay, there is a substantial drive towards financial security and abundance in resources financially. In the ninth house, we've got Pluto conjunct the ninth house, cusp in Capricorn, which stands for the fact that Bulgaria has in the past faced foreign occupation, but that is nothing new to anyone that knows Bulgaria, even at a base level. So you've had countries or empires that have ruled over Bulgaria in its history in the past. Now, the 10th house, yeah, Saturn is ruled by Aquarius. Saturn is 0 degrees in Pisces, like I said earlier, going retrograde, which stands for the fact that most men, they are in positions of authority. Like I said, anything from judges, the judicial system, department heads, you name it. They work in anything where they're seen as those in charge of society. The armed forces, you name it, law enforcement, fire department, politics, you name it. And unfortunately, the retrograde, Saturn is already in one of the weakest positions it can be in Pisces, and it going retrograde, so not only being in Pisces, but also going retrograde stands for the fact that there is these, especially these leaders, are substantially corrupt down to the core. And it comes into conflict with their mentalities and habits come into conflict with the household. That's what this whole cluster was about earlier. Now, moving along, you've got Neptune in Pisces going retrograde, conjunct the 11th house. Stands for the fact that there is a lot of corruption in Bulgaria by default. There has always been, and there will most likely always be a substantial level of corruption present, regardless of how much Bulgaria advances as a nation. There will always be a strong base level corruption that affects the population on a massive level or at a massive scale. That's why it's in the 11th house, the house dealing with the masses. So most Bulgarians or most people living in Bulgaria. And with all the negative consequences that follow, poor mental health and whatnot, it affects the population en masse at a psychological level. But yeah, I mean, who wouldn't be affected by high levels of corruption and disorder? Now, you've got Chiron and the Earth. I already treated the North Node in Aries. Chiron is going retrograde. Chiron doesn't say all too much, honestly. The Earth there simply stands for the fact that, generally speaking, Bulgarians hoped that the corruption could be weeded out entirely and that they could prosper and become a dominant nation. But since it's conjunct the North Node, it stands for the fact that that is highly unlikely to come to pass. At absolute best, it would take centuries before there is any significant change. Again, a geolocation chart of a country is like, it's quite similar, it's pretty much equivalent to a natal chart for an individual. Everything I said, these stands for the default, I repeat, the default properties of Bulgaria. Yeah, Jupiter, like I said earlier, is 12 degrees in Taurus, in the 12th house going retrograde. Oh boy. Yeah, it stands for the fact that, again, there is a lot of corruption, especially focusing on financial prosperity in Bulgaria. That's why the moon opposes both Jupiter as well as the pot of fortune. Mars is almost opposed to the pot of fortune. It's off by 2 degrees or so, or a degree or two. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for Jupiter. Not a lot else to say, honestly. high levels of corruption, or at the very least moderate levels of corruption. But all things said, yeah, no, a substantial, a well above average level of corruption from a neutral perspective. That's why Jupiter is going retrograde, and that's why it's in Taurus. Taurus stands for the reason of said corruption for the purposes of money. And ironically, the power of fortune is 13 degrees in Taurus, which stands for the fact that this is where Bulgaria's strength lies. Ironically, just ignore the sirens in the background, stupid ambulance driving past. Yeah. The power of fortune being 13 degrees in Taurus simply stands for the fact that, funnily enough, Bulgaria's strength lies in corruption, or at the very least, obtaining financial prosperity through either shady, illegal, or non-reputable means, or by such essentially things happening behind the scenes. And yeah, that's also why, let me see, the power of fortune is almost conjunct Uranus, but it's off by a couple of minutes, honestly, you know. And yeah, that's essentially it, honestly. You can also include human trafficking in everything I said regarding corruption, but not at a tremendous level, honestly. If it is at a tremendous level, then it's primarily more by metaphorical coincidence rather than anything the chart directly points out. Let me see if I have anything else to say. No, that's pretty much it. See you later, guys. Until next time.